This tutorial is going to be about taking your drawings and putting them through Photoshop and erasing the background. So if we jump into Photoshop, I'm going to do this 3 times, going through the process as simply as I can. So I've got my layer here. Even though it's locked, I should be able to go Command A, which is the same as going Select All, Command X, or Command C, Cut or Copy, which is the same as going up to here, Edit, and going Cut or Copy. I'm going to go Cut. Over here, in this palette, I'll see Layers, and I should see Channels and Paths. If I don't, they'll be under the Window menu. I click on Channels. The first thing I need to do is make a new channel. Because I know the image that I cut is exactly the same size, I can just go Command V, which is the same as going Edit, Paste. If it wasn't, then I'd usually start off with white as my background color rather than black. Now I go Command L, which is the same as going Image, Adjustments, Levels. Never play with the bottom sliders because they're just restricting it. At the moment it goes from black to pure white, but if I brought this slider in, it just means it now goes from black to about 50% grey. So we leave these bottom output levels alone and we just work with the top input levels. The histogram kind of shows that in the white area it's dirty. So we can push that white slider down and what you will see is the grey disappearing out of the background. You can see that it's also lightening the black, and here's the histogram for the black. So if we pull this up, it's going to give it more contrast. There's still a bit of grey here. If I want, I can play with the middle slider and that will darken or lighten it as well. Pull it down a wee bit more, and that's looking pretty good. I don't want to push these sliders too close together, otherwise what will happen is our image will start to get really harsh around the edges. It's not too bad at the moment, but it'll start to get very chunky if those two are pulled in close together. So once I've kind of eliminated the grey, I can go OK. If there's little marks around here that I don't like, because the channels work in just black and white, anything grey will give transparency. Then down here I can get white, a paintbrush, and I can just paint that little bit out. Now white is the area that's active, like a stencil. Black is the area that is kind of blocked out. So I need to make this the opposite because the black area is the area I want to fill. So if I go Command I, same as going Image, Adjustments, Invert. So I'm just making the opposite. I can check the blacks and whites at this stage again, all fine. And then once I've got that, I just come down to the Selection menu, or say Load Channel as Selection, click on it. I can see with that dotted line that the selection's been chosen. I now click on my layers. I have to either click on a layer to bring me back into the layer mode, or just go New, create a new blank layer. Now black and white are my foreground and background color. So I can, if I want to fill that, the long way is to go Edit, Fill, and up here you have options like foreground color, background color, choose a color, black, white, 50% grey. I'll go black. Okay. I still have my selection there, so I go Command D, which is the same as just going Select, Deselect. And now if I switch the eye off beside background, that's it. I've got my image on there, nice and clean. If you tried to select this with anything else like the magic wand or any other option, you'd end up with white halos. This way of going through the channels gives you a perfect end result. No halos, everything looks just right. So let's jump into the next one and we'll do the same thing. This time I'm going to do it with the key command. So I'm going to go Command A, to select all, Command X to cut it, into my channels, make a new channel, Command V to paste it, Command L to bring up the levels, all the sliders in, I leave a little bit of grey there because it's not actually really touching the object, so I can go OK, get my paintbrush in with white, I can just paint that out. All looks pretty good, so Command I to invert it. Now the thing is, sometimes you see red. Just make sure when you're in the channels that these eyes are off. If you switch off the eye beside RGB, all of these others are off, and just make sure that you're working just in the channels. So if you see another color, it's because these other eyes have come on. Command I to get the opposite. I'll turn it into a selection, go to my layers, I'll go new, Option Delete to fill it with the foreground color, Command D to get rid of that selection. Now a few key commands to know. I'll just change some of these around. Because it has transparency, I can click the lock, and it means when I paint, it's not going to paint over that transparency. It's one way to do it. Now if I want to fill the whole thing, a few key commands. So this is my foreground color. If I hold down Option and Delete, it fills everything. At the moment, it fills that whole layer because nothing was selected. Command Z to undo it. So if I hold down the Shift key, it will keep the transparency. So Option, Shift, Delete, fills that whole thing with the foreground color. Now when I click on this, this is the background color. So I'll choose a different color. Command Delete lets you fill with the background color. So same thing, if I want to keep the transparency, I hold down Command, Shift, Delete. Option, Shift, Delete, fills with the foreground color. Now another quick key is, if I hit D, just the D key, it will change the foreground color to pure black, background color to pure white. This is good when you're working in the channels, to know that you're not working with a very dark grey or a dirty white. X, if I just hit the X, you'll see these two colors swap. If I keep hitting X, they swap back and forth. Good again if you're using a paintbrush in the channels. Alright, so black is my foreground color, so I'll go Option, Shift, Delete, and I've got that. So I'll jump into the last one. This one's going to be a little bit trickier. So Command A to select all, Command X to cut, into my channels, new channel, Command V, Command L to bring up the levels. Now what we'll notice with this is that if I try and clean it up just only using the levels, it's going to become quite harsh, this graphic, and I don't want it to be that harsh. See how some of the subtlety is coming back. So what I can do with some of these areas that are a bit dirty is I can use tools called Dodge and Burn. Now the other ones that look like a lollipop, looks like it might I've just got to bring it in, it wasn't up. So it's a lollipop, and if I hold down on it, I will get a hand tool, a burn tool. So we'll start with the dodge tool. At the moment, 400, it's soft. You always want to have it on highlights. Now if I want to increase the size of the brush, I can use the square brackets. The right square bracket makes it bigger, left square bracket makes it smaller. The exposure is 2%, so usually it's on 50. And this means that you can build it up. So if I start painting with the highlights, you can see it's removing that grey. I can run over my image and it's not going to get rid of the really dark blacks. It's just going to push the greys, and it's going to decide whether they're closer to white or black, or it's going to try and push them towards white. Now if I click on this and hold down and I get the burn tool and I have it on shadows, the opposite, it will darken these areas up. It won't affect the whites, but it'll beef up the blacks. These tools are really, really good for refining your masks. Now if I go to the brush tool, remember I've got white and black, and I can use the X key to swap back and forth. So X, it's black. Maybe I can paint some of these little areas in I don't want. I'm just going to make the brush a lot harder, make it smaller so you can painting out some of these dots with black. X, foreground color is white again, brush a bit bigger, and I can take out some of this little stuff that I don't want. Command I, get the opposite. At this stage I can look at the blacks and whites again to make sure they're okay, because you can still use the levels and other things to tidy it up at this stage. Command L, I can see with the histogram that really everything's pretty good. Click the selection, so it's now a selection, layers, new layer, option delete, which is fill with the foreground color, which is black, Command D, and I have it. Now with the arrow tool, if I click on my image and I drag up and I go over one of these other tabs, it'll bring up another image. Now still holding down, if I drag in and let go, I'll end up with it coming in on this channel. I'll grab the other one, I'll do the same. Click and drag, hold over that tab until the other image comes up, drag down, let go, and my other image is on here. So now I can get rid of these other ones. Don't save. And I've got everything here on transparent layers. So I'm just going to recolor them a bit. So I'll get a color, Option Shift Delete, fill with the foreground color, go to the next one, pick a new color, Option Shift Delete, fills it, keeping the transparency, and you'll notice that everything's nice and clean. One more color, and with the last one, Option Shift Delete, I have all these sorts of things. Now what we'll start to do further through the process is the idea of using an image as a selection but affecting something else. So for instance, if we go to the blue and I hold down the Command key and I click on it, you will see a selection for the blue. If I go Command H, it'll hide those edges if they look a bit, if they're hard to look at, but Command H again, you can see them. So all it is it's showing it and not showing it. They're still active. So now what I can do is I can go onto my pink layer and I'm going to go Layer, Layer Mask, and I'm just going to reveal all. Just means it's going to put a blank mask in there. Now with my paintbrush, remember black blocks. So if I go to black, when I draw over the pink, it's going to hide it because black blocks. And it's all working within the selection that we chose off the blue image. So I can come in here and I can have stuff like this going on. Let's have a look here, and we'll say, okay, maybe I'll chop this out over the blue, but we can still see it sitting behind the blue. This area here, I'll let the blue over the top, and this is quite a nice area here where I can kind of duck this image behind, so I can go over the edges because the selection controls it. Command H, so you can see, so it looks like it's coming behind and then it's going over the top. So you can really start to play with these things in a wonderful way. Command H, that selection is still there. So let's do something a little bit different. So this one is behind the blue. So now if I go Command click on this one, I come up to the blue and I'll go Layer Mask, Reveal All, put in a blank. We've got black again. So I can come up here and now I'm affecting the blue, but I'm using the orange as a mask. So that means that I can bring some of this stuff in. So I'm going over the edge of the blue. You can see it's not changing that. I can bring this through here. And watch what I do here. So I'll go over the pink, because the pink is up the top, it's going to block it. So what I can do now is I can go here. So the pink's going to block it, but let's say I want this little bit to come over the orange. So while I've still got the orange selected, I'm going to click on the mask for the pink. We know that black blocks. So if I do this little bit here, it now looks like it's coming over the top, and then it's going to slip in behind. Command D. So we can start to entangle these images a wee bit and play with them, but that's starting to go into the next level.